So I just want to say hello to. We've been all here for about an hour, just going through some stuff. We did some critique of my own art, which was good fun. We've had a good discussion about converting 3D hair into for 3D printing and turning into geometry using the remesh and converting instances to real and other techniques like that. We also started taking a look at like a robot walk, which was really an impressive render by Prashant. And we've had a whole bunch of different things. So it was a very busy pre-party. So thanks, guys. But now we're going to do the actual formal thing, and we have a queue of questions to come up. So, Kate, do you want to come on the mic and explain your question and your context?
All right. I'm practicing, I guess more like mechanical, less organic stuff. I want to get better at hard surface, mechanical, mecha, etc. And my question is, how do you go about filling in the shapes and the details of mechanical designs or robots and stuff like that? Like once you have, if you're building a hand, I get stuck at the parts of, I don't know, just filling it out. It always ends up looking empty and hollow.
Dean Hollow.
So I'd love to know how
Like
to
my
tackle
soul.
that. Yeah.
All right. Really, it's a good question. So, okay. I haven't made a lot of robots in my life, but a couple of us here have. So, Prashant, do you actually want to chip in and like, because you're pretty good at this. You repeat what you mentioned earlier, just recently, so we can share.
Mm,
Only if you want to.
yeah, I don't know if there's like a straight like answer to that question. Um, uh, yeah, see, when I do mecha stuff, I always start organic. I sculpt things out for concepting, and then I go and fill in the model, like as far as modeling goes. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I sculpt it to the detail where I can just retopo, but I sometimes sculpt it just as a reference, and then I can have that in the background and I model over it. Uh, but uh, but yeah, and also like I see your um, robot hand, Kate. This is great. Um, you could also add the the next level of detail. I would call these your large shapes and somewhat medium shapes, and I think you can add more medium shapes and the smaller shapes in texturing too.
Yeah, I guess I was watching out some guys on Twitter who make some pretty amazing mechs and things like that, and they
Mm.
talk about ratio a lot, proportions and ratio. So you have like you've we've talked of the Fibonacci here before, right? And do you remember that sequence of numbers or the proportions where you have like a big shape and then you have like a two-thirds shape and then you have the two-thirds of that and two-thirds of that shape? Kind of like that. You just go around in the spiral of detail. So do you remember that robot that you made, Kate, with me in the Blender Royale, that pink robot that we did? A while back. See if I can dig it up for you.
Yeah, sorry. I was typing and then I realized I can talk. Yeah, I remember that. It was cool.
But you did a pretty good job there as well, like this robot here. The concept where we started with the big shapes and then we started with like some medium chunks and then we just quickly drew in like little details with the grease pencil to follow in the detail. It's the same concept practically. So when people start designing robots or designing machines, you always have your silhouette. So when you have your arm, you've got your silhouette good, but like in the wrist or in like the screen part, that's okay. Or in the knuckles and things, these would be like your medium shapes, and then you can start working on your details. So when you work on your details, you think, okay, so if if a phalange or a phalanx is my big shape, and the knuckle or the joint is the medium shape, then the small shape could be exponentially smaller by like 1/3 of that shape, or 2/3 of that shape, and then 2/3 of that shape, and then 2/3 of that shape. So you could have like little cylinders inside here, some screws on top of the knuckles, or like some tendons that you could see through some transparent plastic, or you could have some edges, like a rim around the plastic here, so it protects it from edge wear, and the rest could be carbon. So you start thinking of like, okay, the hierarchy of detail. So you got your general shape, that's good. So you do it in 3 layers, you have your medium shape, and then you have your fine detail, and then you're good to go. I guess, how would we do that practically? So as I was showing you guys earlier with this character, I gotta think of something similar, right? I'm gonna whip out my pen, and let's see what we can do. What kind of design we want? What do we want to create? So grab a grease pencil, and let's see if we can design something quickly with that principle. And what other design principles do you keep in mind, Kate, when you want to make your robot? Like you mentioned something about oil or non-useful mechanical concepts, or like in the message here, in the original message, you mentioned something about things like Rachel Frick or cybernetic limbs. What's a good process for filling in details? Trying to make the hand twice. Mechanical entertainment or aesthetic, not engineering purposes. What do you mean by this? What do you want to refer to with that context?
That just, I guess I was just meaning like I'm not like not, you know, something that you could technically build and assemble in real life. Just I find a lot of times, like for this, it's so out of my comfort zone, and I feel like there's so much I don't know, that I tend to get, I don't know, I feel like the only way for me to do anything is like, oh, I'll have to go through it like a realistic, practical way. Like this is different kinds of mechanical hinges and joints, and the only way I can build something is if it's like realistic, you know, like something that could actually physically work. Because I'm so scared of like going off of the lines.
Off the book, yeah.
Yeah. Which isn't very practical. Like, I don't think anyone designs robots for them to actually be something that could theoretically work, you know, like Boston Dynamics or something. That's, I mean, Boston Dynamics would, but you know, for art and stuff, that's not usually the thing. But I have trouble getting away from that, even though I suck at, obviously, mechanical design and stuff like that, because I haven't studied it. I'm not a mechanical engineer.
Sorry about the jet. Sorry.
All good.
You're muted, Trace.
Oh, sorry about that. So I was streaming to Twitch, but I'm muted here. Sorry about that. So what I was saying was that there are a couple of artists like Paul Kaldesian, Ian McKee, and others that I really like who focus on not just like, to me, I like functional design. Functional design brings out an interesting aesthetic in itself over just aesthetics to me, but that's a personal taste. But at the same time, like being free of that, yeah, they do something based on their fantasy and the story that they want. So I guess you got to think, okay, so if you're thinking of Cyberpunk 2077, I think it is, you think, or something like games which has cyberpunk type of aesthetics or things like that, you think like, okay, so what is the culture that they're trying to transmit? And with that, you have people in their tattoos and their piercings and like typical people from today. But then you have the added modifications where they had their legs amputated or damaged, and then then you start replacing the legs with something bionic and interesting, or their arms, things like that. So if you have a good story nice and clear in your head, you don't have to worry too much about the design, I suppose. So with your cybernetic hand, what's the context and the background of that hand? What is the story?
Is my hand.
It's your hand.
Yes. And I would like it's based off of a sculpt I did of my hand. I'm using that as a base.
That's
There's
cool.
not so I don't know. I don't have a specific style in mind for it. I just wanted to practice
That's
stuff mostly.
Question: how did you go from sculpt to that?
So the hand part that's visible, like the not the fingers in the photo that I sent, the arm and the like back of the hand and stuff, that is the topology of my sculpt, sort of split up and sectioned, and with a few modifiers. The other part, I tried modeling each part of the finger, and then for each finger, it's an empty that instances the collection of all the finger parts.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. I had Rachel Frick's robotic arm open in my other window the whole time. I didn't want to copy hers exactly. Like I made an effort to not copy her, not the pieces that she used for the knuckles and stuff like that. But I was referencing hers a lot to see, because I found it helpful to look at how like just hard surface topology, and then also how she built different parts.
Hmm.
Oh, I see. Rachel Frick. Now I see her.
Yeah, I have her.
Oh, yeah. She did a
I can put a link
tutorial
in.
series recently, didn't she?
Her stuff is really cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, check.
So
Hmm?
I can tell where she's pulling her design from. I think I'm guessing that her references are Vitaly Bulgarov's hand,
Oh, he's a legend.
which is basically the hand of Alita. I can see the similarities with that. So that's a good reference for you, I think. Vitaly Bulgarov, he's one of the first not hand, but mech guys that are really, developing expertise, especially in design. And, he made Alita all the, I think, mech bodies, both the first one and like the final one she had. Yeah, some of the Transformers. He's worked on a lot.
He's a legend
But
in the industry.
he focuses on design, which is interesting because the tools he uses is very generic. Like
Yeah,
he uses
subdivision
like an
mostly.
outdated software.
Soft image, woo!
Yeah. He still uses it because
Represent. It's so good.
you can't even find it anymore. And but he also uses CAD tools like I think Moi 3D is his program.
Really?
Can you spell
Yeah.
his name?
Hmm?
The artist who is.
Yeah,
Vitaly
Vitaly,
Bulgarov.
yeah, Vitaly Bulgarov from Moldova. Let me find the link. Um, but yeah, Ghost in the Shell. There's a lot, and he's been doing a lot of like organic stuff recently too.
Oh, good. He's
Um,
branching out.
yeah, and try to find. There he is. I'm gonna put that link on Q&A&Critique.
There you
I
go.
should put it in, yeah, but yeah, he's a pretty good designer, I would say, of mechanical parts.
Yeah, I mean, that approach I like a lot. I do that a lot with myself, with my own designs, is like I design like an environment or a character based on what they need to function, basically. For example, if I design this robot here, look right. What I'm doing right now is I'm taking note of their general silhouette and their form in red, and then in green, I'm taking a look at their medium details from my references, so that I can I'm just feeding my brain with the studies of like, okay, so what are the shapes that they're using? What is the proportions that they're going to work with? How are they designing the characters? What is their general concepts that they're working with by figuring that out? And then using another color, for example, like light blue or something, I start taking note of the little details that they start working on to bring in the robot and the actual design of the actual characters. So notice that there's very clear hierarchy of detail within the shapes. There's the face, the text on the wall. There's this panel here. There's the hole inside the machine. There's these pipes and pieces underneath the robot. There's this like hand thing holding the gun. There's like some screws over here. So I start taking notice of the hierarchy and think about the practicality. So for example, a lot of these robots, for example, like this one here, this is a very practical looking one. He's using a ball joint to get omnidirectional movement, and then he's using like a gas tank up here, kind of like his heart, protected with armor. There's a pressure gauge, so that's where he's like fueled by pressure. Then we have these valves and pipes and levers and things, and like a belt thing. These belts here would be used to control the left-right gait of his spine. And then we have another ball joint up here in his shoulders, and then we have these pistons for extending out his arm a little bit, and things
One
like that.
thing, I'll be gone for eating for a few minutes now.
Okay, I'll wait till you're back, and then we can take a look at your eye. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to me, with that, I take an analysis of like their functionality and how they built this robot and why did they build it the way did they build it. With the basic functionality, and that creates that kind of like diesel punk, steampunk concept. The here, like the feet here has kind of like a spring carbon system, or like this ankle knee joint comes up. It has like an explanation of why the robot is the way that it is, that it has an ankle, has some toes for balance. And with a little bit of functionality, you can design an aesthetic. But sometimes you can work around something a little bit just like style. So for example, this cathode TV up here is a stylistic choice with these probably this directional like mouth guards and a visor for the TV. Like, okay, so are we supposed to look at what the character's looking at in the TV? No, it's a stylistic choice. A very human hand because he's a human character. And with that, he's even wearing a jacket. So this jacket gives him a very human feel. Maybe he's programmed to think he's cool and empathetic with the other humans. So with that, his design. But even then, we still have like this spine is on a pivot. His hip system is based around another ball joint, which comes out into a central piece here. So there's still some functional design in the aesthetic based around the stylistic choice of the character. You can kind of mix and match your imagination. It's like, okay, so what do I want to inject into the personality of the character, and what do I want to do as a practical design? So in this case, another ball joint that's attached to a stick that comes out inside an open hole so that it can move around. There's a panel that pops out with a lever. This lever shoots a little rocket out. This has a double piston to hold the angular weight of this long, probably either a bazooka or some kind, so you can bring it around and over his head. His head is attached to like a pivot thing and has a singular light to shine an infrared camera of some kind. Has a shoulder pad here to block the forward movement of his leg, and then back here it's all open so that the leg can bend correctly, and then it goes to points, and his arm has like a very repetitive shape of cones, which is a very nice stylistic choice, kind of humanoid. And then at the bottom here he maybe has like a drain or a plug where he plugs in and fills up or charges his battery when he sits down or something like that. And then inside like this panel is like, okay, so how do we open up this robot? Well, maybe we have a screw here, and the panel is divided here so that you can open up the front and the back of the robot. And maybe you have some protective panels here that covering some screws to hold in this circular thing over here, and you start thinking up the design of the actual character based on the requirements of what you want the character to do based on the story. So you kind of think about these little things. There's a quick access panel here in the front, and basically we've made sure that the character has. There's also some like this like little spike thing which could be designed to help protect the fumes from not detecting this big cannon fuse thing. And then we have like some reinforcing bars over here. So this is a very cartoon design, but they thought up a lot about how you want to like make the actual cup shape a robot that has an actual function to it, I guess you could say. So my approach to that is like, well, I try to understand not only the form, the silhouette, and the aesthetics and things, but I try to think about a little bit about the function, and with that it helps me create a very credible robot, or a credible design for a robot. Like this robot here has a plank here with a suspension piston. It has a wheel with a drive motor on the side which is attached to the system here. We have another circular thing with a lock that can be used to lock in the arm over here. We have these pipes which pipe in the battery pack which is underneath here, which might come off. Then we have like this metallic shielding to protect the electronics, which will hold onto some wires connecting onto his thing that he's holding on. And then with that we can do some stylistic choices like, okay, so he sits on these panels and he's puts his arms inside the controls and he rides this robot thing with two wheels. But notice that we have, if I go back to my green color, notice that we have the general shapes of like the cylinder here, another cylinder here, a square here, another cylinder here, the square here. We have like this banana shape here, circular shape here. We have this general like T shape, round T shape here in the center, and then we have this cube thing. So he's got the general shape, and then he's got the green shape, and then we have the little light blue details, like here inside the motor, these ridges. And so with that, yeah, I hope. How does that? What do you think of that, Kate? Are you still there? Oh, okay, cool. She's asking, are there any resources I like for learning about the function side, like different types of design, hinges, pivots, connections? Marty says he's got 2 good resources for whimsical robots that are very clanky. Robots from Girl Genius webcomic, and the robot designs in Freefall, especially the early days from Freefall. We got Battle Alita. And Modeling in Tank Blend by Rachel Frick. We did another YouTube tutorial. This one's whimsical robot design. Here's the tank. Yeah, there's a good book. He's trying to find a reference for it. Thanks, Marty. Well, I hope you guys find it interesting. So let's go back to my robot, M447. He's a DJ robot. And let's go back to the original concept designs. Is literally a robot made out of decks. And it's designed to transform. There we go. So this is the original design. It's got some turntables. It's got the mixer. It's got some readouts. It's using like an actual needle as like a microphone thing. And it's kind of a humanoid robot. So that's the original idea. He's even got a keyboard on his arm. And a CDJ as a shoulder pad. So I guess it's kind of like your DJ companion. So I gotta think, okay, so what is he? And we gotta define what is this character. Let's get some context. So shift in it. So first things first, he's a comic relief character. All right, so he's kind of a funny, cool guy. He's sarcastic and cool. All right, so he's pretty suave. He's got a suave gait to him. So that means I can make his limbs nice and long, or make his shoulders kind of powerful but suave, kind of like what he have here. Nice, strong shoulders. What else can I do with this character? He's multi-purpose. So that means his multi-purpose is this. He does sound system, a live performance system, a one-man band system. What else could he be? He's kind of like a commercial robot. He's one-man band system, and he can convert to different types of instruments. Okay, so that kind of narrows down what I want to do with him and how I'm going to make him work. So he's got to be kind of like a half transformer type of character where he can pop out and give his function and also become an actual companion and character. So it's kind of like a transformer type of character, I suppose. So now with that kind of in mind, other things that he needs to have is his own power. Rarely charges. So maybe like no battery pack, he just has his own power system maybe. Maybe he needs very mobile, can take a beating for like touring on the road. For touring, you know, since he's a performance robot, he's got to look cool, you know, stylish, kind of like a club, you know, garish, colors everywhere. So that means that these color schemes that I have here are a lot more relevant than using something that looks more like this. So I've got to keep that in mind. What else? Lights. Maybe he can have a light system as well to work with the music. So he's not just a music robot, but also a lights presentation robot. Lights presentation system. All right, and he's also got to have a human interfacing. So he's got to be friendly. He's got to be emotional. He's got to be expressive, and he's got to be the opposite of uncanny. So to do that, I either avoid the uncanny vibe 100% and I make something completely different and cute and interesting, or I gotta think of something a lot more humanoid. But humanoids are kind of creepy because of the uncanny valley, so I gotta make them opposite of the uncanny. So there were two robots that I really like here with this like TV screen as a concept, because it's very friendly. You can put anything on side of the head if it's a TV screen. So I like that concept. And also, this robot is a little bit retro, right? So that's something else. He's retro. He's retro and refitted many times. So he's old. He's an old robot. So that's something. These are the different parameters that I have with my character design that I need to keep in mind from the original client brief. And with that, I can start taking note of the useful parts of my references and mixing and matching, and then I can start sketching and designing based on the rules that I've seen. I notice that there's a very boxy shape with legs. The legs are very clear, the arms are very clear, the shoulders are always very clear, the hips are usually very wide, the waist is usually very thin, so I can work that through. Sometimes there's a little bit more of a boxy design of very pointy legs, so I can also work that too. I can start iterating my designs based on that concept. So let's go back to the original, your hand. Now you got to think about, okay, so what was your original goal? Do you want to create your hand? Do you want to make it cybernetic? Do you want to make it hypersensitive in this case? Well, do you have touch sensors on your fingertips? Is it heat resistant? So you design it from heat resistant materials. Or is it light and carbon and flexible? And in this case, what is the special features? How does the hand work? Does it use tendons? Will you have transparent plastic here in the white part to show the tendons? Do you have some muscle systems inside the arm, or is it based on rotary motors? And if that's the case, well, maybe you can show some rotary motors everywhere. Maybe these green parts are actually rotary motors in the fingers. You start thinking a little bit about the function of the original concept of your context, and then you can fill in the details nice and quickly because you know kind of what the robot is. Make sense? Yeah, it's Terminator. Wedding parties and corporate events. Yeah, exactly. Wedding parties and corporate. So let me just read back. When you try to break it down into how this or that would move, that's where I tend to get a little stuck. Like, how would this finger extend and close? Oh, right, yeah. I think you heard that right. Okay, it's searching mechanism. Huh?
I'll tell you, like, it's really hard to avoid intersections of meshes when it comes to mech. Like, every awesome mech in TV, there is some sort of intersecting parts.
Yeah.
It's unavoidable. Even Thanos, like, the glove in the final, key shot when he's like snapping his fingers at the end, you can completely see the fingers like going through the mesh. The other fingers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, I guess they missed it, or I mean, maybe
I hope
they
the
don't care,
motion blur
but
would cover it. Crunch.
well, I think it's just a given that
That's called an Easter egg.
yeah, you just can't avoid. I mean, you can avoid it, but it'll just look boring. And then you have to make it look cool by, adding more parts to make the proportions different or something like that. And then
And then you gotta work it through. Yeah, robots is like, I guess there for mechanical things there are a number of different ways you can make the joints. Like a quick rundown, you have a ball joint, which is kind of like an omnidirectional socket with a ball, where you have one stick coming out, and then the socket, kind of like your hips. Then you have your hinge. A hinge is kind of like you have a joint here,
I think
and you have your hinge. You have your piston, which is kind of the similar system to a hinge. So a piston hinge is where you have a joint here and a joint here. Then you have like one compartment here which has another stick that goes into it using pressure, and the pressure from one end or the other drives a piston to bring out the hinge to go open and close. So that's very typical use. You have rotary motors, which is kind of like a motor which is attached to one end, and it just spins around from magnetic power to spin it around, which is kind of like another type of hinge. and that's very typical on a lot of these robots. If you want like a bi-directional joint, you can have a joint that rotates and has like a line here, and then it has another line perpendicular which rotates around like this and comes out. So you have a joint that spins in the X, and then you have a rotation that spins in the Y to give you two directions. It's a little bit harder to control those joints though. But just looking at like keywords that you can search for is like mechanical joints. Yeah, things like this. Robotic wrist joint. So you look for robotic joints, car joints, machine joints, door joints, anything with the word joint, and you're good.
Also, the cybernetic muscle thing. Is even if you're going for that, it'll look more like actual anatomy, like human anatomy,
That's right.
than joints. I mean, than motors, I would say.
Yeah, which is the future, which is like it's similar to a piston, where you have one muscle joint. Like the way that you would use a muscle joint is like, so you have I'm going to use a thicker pen to see if you can see it. Whoops, the wrong button. There we go. So I'm going to use a different color. So for example, if I have a bone here and I have the other bone here, the difference with a piston is kind of like has an angle, right, between one bone to the other, and it contracts and pulls. But the difference with the muscle is that you have the muscle that is joined here, and then you have the tendon, which threads through the elbow and then attaches to the arm. So when the muscle contracts, it pulls the tendon and brings the arm up. So that's why when you pull your arm up, your arm goes thicker at that muscle that's pulling your arm up, because it's contracting all of the strands together through, and the tendon on your elbow is what is held by a sheath. That's why you have your funny bone here, is kind of to protect that, and also if you damage these sheaths, it can be quite terrible. So the sheath holds the bone in. So when you're using, for example, with your bionic hand, and you want to use cybernetic muscles inside of the system, you're going to have to need either expose the muscles so that they can expand and subtract, and cover them with like a transparent or a coating instead of a hard plastic, so that the muscles can compress. And then you have your sheath, and you design the sheath systems and bring out the tendons that are attached to some pins, I guess you could say. So inside the plastic, you could have some access panels to show where the pins are, so that you can unplug and plug in your pins on the muscles again. So you think, okay, cool. So if you're using contracting muscles, well, I guess this plastic sheath I have here in the arm is not going to be useful at all. So yeah, sorry about the background noise.
Easy peasy.
This is about your little do-it-yourself Buffalo Museum of Science robot hand. Approach the science fair, nice. Right, he has another connection, like, this is the most amazing biometric anthropomorphic robot hand you've seen. Really cool. So he's using different types of stresses.
Sorry, I am paying attention. It's just easy to dig this stuff up out of memory.
This is really useful, actually. Hopefully that answers. It's good digging, actually. Does that answer your question? And shall we move on to JKRs? Who wants to do an art critique? Are you guys ready?
Wait a second. I have immensely overhauled this and actually got the... Oh, not render animation. And actually got the bat from earlier in there. So yeah. Just please let me render.
Alright, okay. Alright.
It's not quite complete, but it's better than before. Far better, actually.
Actually, do you guys want to see my first 3D model I've ever done in my life? It was actually a robot hand as well.
Sure.
From 2006.
Why are you so organized? Your folders and stuff. Hey, you got a bunk there too.
Yes. Right, here it is. This was my first hand that I made. I was 13 years old.
Nice.
Wow.
How did you do that at 13?
Okay, 2006. What did you use, Blender?
Now I use TrueSpace.
Uh,
Wait, 2006. It's 2021. So that's a good 14, 15 years ago. I was 14 years old, 15 years old.
wow.
Okay, I still have a chance to catch up.
Yeah. And I made a leg as well.
Or rather, I'm not that far behind.
So as you can see, I put all the pieces inside these panels, and I made these cables go inside these arms, and I was using rotary motors to bring out the movement on the arms and the fingers. And I just
Now
put
let
some
me
rubber
just
tips.
save my scene or my file.
The thumb has a ball socket. But this was my first attempt, right? Like trying to understand it a little bit a long time ago. And obviously the proportions are terrible, and I mean, I was just a kid just learning how to this was
It's
learning how to
actually
box model.
pretty good. Actually, I mean, 2006.
So here we
I don't
go.
know, that's pretty awesome, I think.
Yeah, it was old.
It's still not quite complete. There are still things missing. Okay.
Alright. Oh, looking good. Looks dreary.
The kitchen still looks far less detailed than the bed and radiator, which I just grabbed from different parts of the same project.
I really like the lights coming in. I wish there was more light. I like the
That you
stove.
would see the horror of the kitchen literally having
Unshaded
no bump maps.
boxes of cereal.
Yeah, also that. I still need to do shader stuff.
Is this an orthographic render?
It's orthographic, yes.
Alright. And where do you plan to take this? Like you said, you mentioned this was a block of apartments from Eastern Europe or something like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking of making like some kind of like small game out of it. I've recently played The Ascent and I really liked it and thought, hey, maybe I do something similar with the camera, just in orthographic and with a different setting, because I'm definitely not modeling like 3 billion different pipes.
So what do you guys think? Do you like it? Yay, nay, what could improve? It's a work in progress, so it's probably very biased to give an opinion now, but what do you guys think?
Well, I wish you gave me an opinion.
Me? Alright.
No, generally, people. That's the target of this, or
Yeah, sure. So let's open the mics. Let's see what you guys think.
I've got something. I just
Alright.
wanted to announce that so I don't I can't see everyone, you know. I like the models in the kitchen. I like the colors and stuff, and the style. Like it looks like you're going for an older.
I can actually give
Era.
you the reference
Oh,
picture. I
yeah,
have.
that'd be nice.
Heck yeah. The bunk beds look very, very big compared to the rest of the room.
They definitely are.
Yeah, that's I think really the biggest thing that stands out to me. I think they could be a lot smaller.
Yeah,
But beyond that, I don't know. I like the modeling and the design and stuff.
yeah, my concern is that to get to the top bed, I would have to like scratch my nose with the roof. So maybe you may need a bit more headroom inside of the top bunk. You got to think of your scale of the room.
That's actually historical because the
Really?
bunk beds that were actually brought with the original East German like commie block style buildings were higher than the rooms. Like they literally didn't fit.
Oh man.
So it's kind of weird with my scaling because I do everything in different scenes.
Okay. And the radiator as well is quite big, maybe compared to everything else.
Yeah. Really.
A 1 meter, no, what? 1 meter 20, 1 meter tall radiator. How tall is the room?
In Blender, you mean?
Yeah, or in measurements,
In-
like, is it a 2 meter room? 2 meters tall? Or
In Blender, it's 5 meters.
5
So yeah,
meters?
no.
What's it supposed to be like? What are you modeling it to for scale?
Yeah, I think 2 meters is like. I think in my head that the room's around about as big as my room, which doesn't say anything.
Alright, so
So
you're
yeah,
eyeballing
I'm
it.
not really thinking about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Especially because half my assets are, again, just drag and drop from different scenes.
Different files everywhere. Okay, well, my
different
biggest
scenes are
recommendation is
files.
standardize your measurements so that so things don't feel off. Like if you make it working in architecture and interior decoration, your measurements are everything. So you gotta like make sure your scale is correct, your room sizes are correct, the roof height is correct. You gotta make sure the heater has a proportion or measurement that is correct to make it work. Unless you're doing a stylized type of render. In this case, you could go super exaggerated on certain aspects. But right now, I can't tell if you're targeting a realistic one or a stylized one. So you may need to make a choice and then work it through. Exaggerate.
Personally, I don't know what I'm targeting either yet.
Ah. All right, well,
Yeah, the
keep at it.
radio looks far better if I scale it down.
There you go. Maybe
Actually, it
some.
doesn't look like it's a hellish giant contraption not make it for humans.
Anyway, but keep at it. I would love to see this finished. Then it's a little bit easy to understand, or closer to finished.
I'll definitely get it there.
Okay.
Closer to finished.
Cool. Alright, hopefully that's useful.
Thanks for the...
Short and sweet. Alright, so Philippines, you had a couple of questions, right?
Yes. Is my mic working?
Yep, your mic is open.
Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah, how to make hair visible on a 3D model without like sculpting it?
For printing, right?
Yeah, not on a 3D model. That's obvious. Yeah.
Alright, let's give it a go, yeah?
Yes. Show me what you got.
Okay, so imagine we have a sphere. And this sphere has some hair. Do you know if... Okay, so the hair are strands right now. So the shape, the render, I want it to be a path or... Sorry, an object. And then I can use some like... I'm going to quickly make this... I'm going to use geometry for now because with geometry I can shape it a little bit, kind of like this. So this is going to be my hair strand, basically, or a chunk of hair. And then I'm going to use this instanced object as the hair shape. So, okay, so now I got my initial shape, right? Made out of geometry. So now I can go into my hair mode. So the alignment is incorrect. Let me just fix the alignment. Usually it's like this, or the other way, sorry. And bring the origin to where it should be. There we go, at the base of the hair. Okay, so this is my hair system and it's based on combing. So if I go into my hair particle edit, I'm going to like, gonna do a haircut just a little bit because I don't need too much hair. Cool. All right, so now let's do some combing, yeah? And we'll comb the hair back a bit. So this is just gonna change, this isn't actually gonna be like curved hair or anything, it's just kind of like show the direction of the hair shapes and gives them a size of the hair. So I'm gonna just scale this up a little bit. And now I have this shape for like, kind of looks like feathers to some degree. So what you do now is, okay, so you have a basic emission of geometry for the hair shapes. So what I'm gonna do is now make all instances real in the modifier stack. Boom, so now they're all pieces of hair. And that means I can start to, I'm gonna hide the original hair system. And I'm gonna use proportional editing in object mode. And I'm going to use like my proportional editing and things like that to like sculpt or rotate or kind of shape the hair that I want around the, or even just scale, for example. Or even just select a bunch of them, or just select, for example, these, and then use the scale individual regions to kind of bring out the shape that I want, minus these ones. There we go. So I'm using real geometry, kind of like particles, to kind of create my hair shape, so that at the end of the day, when I'm ready, I got my sphere. At the end of the day, I can select everything. I can join it. So now it's just one mesh, and then I can use the remesh modifier to make my manifold mesh for printing. Obviously in a much higher detail. So there we go. So now I have a manifold mesh with some detail based on kind of like this feather system. Obviously you can work on your hair shape and everything and work it through, but I can use this to print now. I'm gonna like bring up the detail a bit more.
Yes and no. The
Yes and
problem
no?
is that this is way too detailed. You remember the reference I showed you?
With the cat, yeah.
Yeah. There's only like the surface has like the texture to it, and then the rest is just basically plain, right?
In this case, you would be using the fill brush and sculpt. Flatten, fill. Whoops, not fill. That's weird. May need to... I mean, it's a good start. So for example, like here, this is what you were showing earlier. This is good.
Yes. On the side it looks good.
So there you go, that shape, okay. When it starts going spiky, that's where you need to start like filling it in or working it out. So for example, this part here, I guess you can fill that in, remesh that, and you're good.
But I guess I could just fix that in the first step by making my geometry, my hairs all go to the bottom, and at the bottom I just cut them off.
Exactly. Yeah,
Well,
because
I guess that fixes that.
yeah, it will require some sculpting, but at least you can get kind of like a different technique.
Yeah,
to
that's minimalistic. Also, I don't think I think I can just do it with combing and some curl noise.
But yeah, so that's an idea. Because it worked well in the front when I combed the hair back, but once the hair was sticking out, then yeah, that's not going to print because it's too fine detail and it's just going to snap.
Thank you.
Anyway, it's just an idea.
Yeah, I can try it. Thanks.
And do you have a printer, by the way?
No, a friend prints them out for me.
That's cool. Must
Yeah.
be something else to feel your models in your hands.
Actually, I haven't felt one myself. I only get pictures.
Oh, what?
Yeah, he's living pretty far away.
Man. The quick thing is like.
But this one I will feel, so yeah. I will see how it looks. I will send a picture when it's done.
The other thing is just using the clay brush as well. Clay strips.
Yeah, I wanted to be lazy about that.
The other is creating a brush texture, which has the hair texture on it, and using that like a project the texture on using.
That would be useful. Could you show me how?
Okay, so let's make a new texture. Let's load up the hair shape that I have somewhere in my textures, in my brushes. Let's see if I can find some hair.
Is that like a normal map?
Black and white image.
Okay.
A height map is typically it. Here we go. Here's one. Skin wrinkles. Yeah, it'll do for now. So I have this texture, skin wrinkles, and right now it's set up as a view plane. So let me just zoom in so you can see a bit better. So what you want to do is you want either a stencil or a tiled. I like to use stencil. So the way stenciled work is kind of like you use the right click button and you can use shift right click to scale and control right click to rotate. And I use this as kind of like a projection onto the center of the world. So now I have the world okay. And I need to change the right click, sorry, because this is bad hotkey. Move stencil texture. Just remember the shortcut for now. Add it. Okay. So I have that there, and then I can use like a draw brush or something like that. Oh, which brush was I using? Clay brush. I'm using clay brush to draw in the texture, or using that as a mask to paint in the texture of the black and white image. So it's like it's a stencil. That's one way of doing it. So now I'm using that to like paint on the strokes that I want on the actual sculpt without needing to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shapes. I could just use one.
That looks like the best idea to add something in the end.
Yeah.
Nice. Thanks again.
It's nice and quick to quickly draw in a shape. Obviously, you can like use. There are other things as well. The other technique is stencil, and do you guys know how to use stamps? Like the stamp type of brush instead of point? Stroke. Here it is. So instead of using space or dots, you can use one called an anchored. An anchored texture is and you use, instead of stencil, you go to the view plane or the area plane. So now I think it's anchored. I don't remember. There it is. My strength is very weak. There we go. So what is it? What I'm doing is basically it's like I'm projecting the texture and then stamping it down based on the view of what I have here. So as you can see, there it is. That's another, like, it takes some configuring. That's the problem with Blender, is nothing is default. It's really annoying. I put my angle to like 0. But you can.
Yeah, but I think the best version is still to actually comb your hair pretty much into the into the best position, and then fix up some of the rests with the sculpt.
Yeah, using a stencil. But the stamp system is like, once you get it set up, can feel faster because then you just click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag.
Yeah, but until I set that up, I'm a sculptor. I don't want to be a sculptor.
Oh man. Yeah, because sculpting is not flexible. That's why I kind of like the hair system, like using the particles and then smooth out the particles, make them not so spiky, and run them along the edges, and then do a remesh with your particles.
On another note, does anybody here have any experience in printing out non-remeshed things? Like, usually I retopologize what I print. Do I have to do that? Have I been doing too much work always? Please say yes, somebody.
Retopology for 3D printing?
Yes, that's what I usually did.
I don't think it's that necessary, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I had a model once, which I didn't retopologize, and on the edges it was kind of jumpy, you know? It wasn't as straight as it should have been.
Okay, so maybe... Okay, I guess if it's an organic shape and you don't have any like leading edges, then yeah, you would need... The triangulation of the mesh would not be a problem. But if you have a leading edge, then you're going to need to run a loop to preserve that edge, I assume. Would that be it?
I'm not sure.
Maybe you got to try that out. I have no idea. I don't have any printers. But that's what I would assume.
Retapo helps for printing, but for me, I only do it because it helps with storing the model and subdividing and adding details and stuff like that. But I mean, other than that, when you export the mesh, the final topology, like it may not matter.
Okay.
It might help with the pipeline and like managing the whole thing, but at the end, what the printer sees is like the triangulated, maybe not even, depending on what program you're using, just the final applied subdivisions, applied everything, you know.
I guess I will just send one file over with the unretopologized thingy, and then I will see how it looks.
Wait, do you send blend files to the person?
No. I'm just sending STLs.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of the times I decimate models. Like I'll work on a sub-D multi-level of subdivisions to get the details in, and then I'll just kind of merge all the levels, as in apply the subdivisions
And then you
and
just print it.
decimate to reduce the polygon.
But you just print it.
Yeah.
Okay. If it works for you, it will work for me.
Yeah, it should work. I think it's pretty common. A lot of people like in I use ZBrush, and a lot of people use ZBrush, Dynamesh everything, because what they do is they sculpt things in different parts, and then they kind of Dynamesh everything to combine all the parts to one.
Yeah, that's why I quite like using the remesh modifier sometimes.
Yeah, the same thing.
Yes.
Oh, modifier? Yeah, that's nice to have it as a modifier, actually.
Or even like actually, let me try that out. I wonder if it's possible. You can use geometry nodes with a collection, and then join them all together, and then apply a remesh modifier. So if I have, for example, this mesh group, 1, 2, 3, 4, cubes, and then I make a sphere, new geometry node, up, and then I join, get a collection, mesh collection. Oh, can I do the remesh? So once it goes out here, here it is. Okay, cool. Now in the stack, add a remesh modifier. And there we go. So if I, let's just move everything to the center of the world. If I move a cube, whoops, not the sphere, just the cube, it's going to remesh dynamically based on the collection, no matter how many objects I have inside of the collection.
That's useful.
So you can keep it dynamic and just remesh multiple objects without applying it. So here it is. There you go. So it's like a quick remesh system using a collection. Nice and simple.
The question is, what's the performance?
I mean, about the same as a normal remesh, right? Because it's a modifier. So how many cubes should we make?
A billion. Just kidding. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's a good idea too. Remesh modifier.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to
Actually,
be as performant as the remesh modifier is going to be. So.
yeah. Actually, like what I do in ZBrush now, it used to be that you have to dynamesh, and dynameshing sometimes takes a while. Now that they had added live booleans, what you do in ZBrush is you make a boolean mesh. Then you can hit create boolean mesh, and it'll combine everything and basically do a union operation and make one mesh.
Like this, I suppose.
Yeah, so it'll keep your topology at your higher subdivision level, but it'll still create a single mesh.
Oh.
Like triangulate around the corners where it's intersecting and stuff.
Did you just copy the or duplicated the entire collection, or what did you do?
Yeah, this is this one object is just getting a collection info and then applying a remesh modifier to it. So this is just one collection, so any object that I make or collect into it will become part of that.
Yeah, but how did you make that?
Let me show you the setup. So here in the collection, I have a collection called mesh. Inside this object called sphere, which I'm going to move into another collection just in case there's a loop. So inside this sphere object, I have a collection info node selecting the mesh.
Oh, it's geometry nodes.
Geometry nodes, yep. It's a geometry nodes modifier. One node.
That was the one thing that I didn't get about it.
Yeah, so it's just one node and then the remesh modifier.
Okay. Cool.
Alright guys, well that's been a full hour. It's been kind of fun and interesting. Hope you guys found it interesting. I'm now going to have some lunch. And bid you guys farewell. So I'm going to stop the stream here, but thanks for joining us and sticking around. And some of you guys had to go. So see you guys same place, same time. Thanks for coming early as well. That was kind of fun. So have a good one.
There we go.
Bye.
Bye.